The lion had been in the canyon for 3 days when Kabari found it. She didn't go looking for it. She was tracking the path the cattle took when they grazed too far east, where the ground dropped away into narrow rock corridors that split the plateau. The prince led her to the edge, and when she looked down, she saw it. A full-grown male, pacing in a space barely wider than his own body, flanked by walls too steep to climb. His mane was matted with dust. His ribs showed through golden fur. He wasn't roaring anymore. Just breathing hard, turning in tight circles, wearing a groove into the red dirt. Kabari didn't move for a long time. She knew what happens when a lion stays trapped. The scent changes. The desperation spreads. Other predators come to investigate. Hyenas first, then others. And when they gather, they don't leave. She backed away slowly, keeping her eyes on the animal until the canyon dropped out of sight. Then she ran. By the time she reached the settlement, the sun was beginning to sink. She found Lat-Ano near the fire pits, sharpening a blade against a flat stone. He looked up when she approached, read the urgency in her face, and set the blade down. "There's a lion," she said. "Trapped. East Canyon." Lat-Ano's expression didn't change. "How long?" 3 days. Maybe more." He stood, wiped his hands on his legs, and walked toward the center of the settlement where the others were gathering wood for the evening fire. Kabari followed. When Lat-Ano spoke, his voice was loud enough to carry. Kabari found a lion. Stuck in the East Canyon. The response was immediate. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. An elder named Mashai stepped forward, his face weathered and unreadable. "How far in?" "Deep," Kabari said. "No way out on its own." Mashai looked at Lat-Ano, then back at Kabari. "Then it dies there." The words landed flat, without hesitation. Kabari's jaw tightened. "It's drawing others. If it stays, they'll come closer." "And if we go down there?" Mashai's voice was calm, but it carried weight. "If we try to move it, we risk more. A cornered lion doesn't forgive. We lose someone, and for what? So the animal can leave and return later." "It's not about forgiveness," Kabari said. "It's about what happens if we do nothing." Mashai shook his head. "We've done nothing before. We'll do it again." Lat-Ano said nothing. Neither did anyone else. Kabari looked around at the faces, searching for support, for doubt, for anything. She found only silence. She didn't sleep that night. The settlement was quiet, but Kabari lay awake, staring at the ceiling of woven branches above her. She kept seeing the lion, its exhausted movements, the way it had stopped trying to leap at the walls and had simply stood there, swaying. By dawn, she had made a decision. She gathered rope, a wooden staff, and a water pouch. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. If she asked again, the answer would be the same. The canyon looked different in the early light. The shadows were longer, the walls darker. She approached the edge carefully and peered down. The lion was still there, lying on its side now, breathing shallow and slow. Kabari began to lower herself down the rock face, gripping the rope she'd tied to a boulder above. Her hands burned. Her legs shook. Halfway down, she paused, reconsidering. The lion's ears flicked. It raised its head slightly, watching her. She kept going. When her feet touched the canyon floor, she was less than 20 paces from the animal. It didn't stand. Didn't growl. Just watched, too tired to react. Kabari set down the water pouch and backed away. She didn't know if the lion would drink. She didn't know if it mattered. But she couldn't leave without trying. She climbed out the way she came, her shoulders aching by the time she reached the top. When she returned to the settlement, Lat-Ano was waiting. "You went," he said. It wasn't a question. "I went," Kabari said. "And?" "I gave it water." Lat-Ano exhaled slowly, his frustration barely concealed. "You put yourself at risk for an animal that doesn't know you helped it." "I didn't do it for gratitude." "Then what did you do it for?" Kabari didn't answer. She walked past him, heading toward her shelter. That night, 2 goats went missing. They were young, not yet strong enough to wander far on their own. The tracks led east, toward the canyon. Not into it, but close. Too close. Mashai called a gathering. This time, everyone came. "The lion is drawing attention," he said. Kabari was right about that. But the solution isn't to save it. The solution is to wait until it dies, and then the others will leave. How long will that take? Someone asked. Days. Maybe a week. And what do we lose in a week? Kabari said. Mashai's gaze hardened. Less than we'd lose trying to interfere. The gathering dispersed. No decision was made, because none needed to be. The settlement had already chosen an action. But the losses didn't stop. Another goat disappeared 2 nights later. Then a calf, too young to defend itself, was found mauled at the edge of the grazing field. The wounds weren't from a lion. They were from hyenas. Kabari saw the fear beginning to settle in. Parents kept their herds closer. The elders spoke in low voices near the fire. And still, no one moved to help. She went back to the canyon alone. This time, the lion was standing. The water pouch was empty, tipped on its side. The animal looked stronger, but not strong enough. It stared at her as she approached the edge, its eyes sharp and unblinking. Kabari knew she couldn't pull it out. She didn't have the strength, the tools, or the help. But she could try to clear a path, widen the narrow section of the canyon where the walls pinched together, creating a choke point the lion couldn't pass. She worked for hours, using the staff to pry loose stones, pushing them aside, scraping at the dirt. Her hands bled. Her back screamed. And when the sun began to set, she realized she had barely made a difference. The lion watched the entire time. It didn't come closer. Didn't retreat. Just stood there, waiting. When Kabari returned to the settlement that evening, Mashai was waiting at the edge of the path. "You're making it worse," he said. Kabari stopped, her body too tired to argue. "The more you go there, the more the others circle," Mashai continued. "They smell you. They follow your trail. You think you're helping, but you're leading them here." "I'm trying to prevent what's already happening," Kabari said. "And instead, you're ensuring it." That night, another gathering was called. This time, the tone was different. Sharper. Angrier. "We lose livestock every night now," someone said. "Because the lion is still there," another added. "Because Kabari keeps interfering," a third voice cut in. Kabari stood at the edge of the circle, arms crossed, jaw tight. She didn't defend herself. She didn't need to. The accusation was clear. Latano spoke up. "If the lion dies, the others will leave. We all know this." "And if it escapes?" Kabari asked. "Then it escapes," Latano said. "And we deal with that if it happens." "But we're not dealing with anything now," Kabari said. "We're just losing." Mashai raised a hand, silencing the growing murmur. "Kabari, you will not return to the canyon. This is not a request." Kabari held his gaze for a long moment, then turned and walked away. She didn't go to the canyon the next day. Or the day after. But the losses continued. A water source near the eastern grazing field was abandoned after fresh prints, lion, hyena, and something larger were found circling it. The herds had to be moved farther west, away from the best grass. The settlement felt smaller, tighter, more fragile. And then, one morning, the lion was gone. Kabari heard the news from Latano, who had gone to check the canyon himself. The animal had found a gap. Maybe the one Kabari had started to widen, maybe another. It had escaped during the night. No one celebrated. No one spoke of relief. Because the question now wasn't whether the lion had survived. It was where it had gone. The lions returned a week later. Not just one. 3 of them. A lioness, a younger male, and the scarred, exhausted lion Kabari had seen in the canyon. They were spotted near the northern ridge, moving in formation, their paths deliberate and coordinated. The settlement prepared for the worst. Fires were kept burning all night. Livestock was penned closer to the shelters. Scouts were sent out at dawn and dusk to track the pride's movements. But the lions didn't attack. They circled. They marked territory. They hunted in the lowlands, far from the settlement. And slowly, something strange became clear. The hyenas were gone. The rival predators that had been closing in, drawn by the scent of the trapped lion, emboldened by the chaos, had retreated. The presence of the pride had pushed them back, reclaiming the territory they had started to invade. It wasn't protection. It wasn't gratitude. It was something colder, more practical. The lions had re-established dominance, and in doing so, they had created a buffer the settlement hadn't earned but could now live within. Masai was the first to notice. He stood at the ridge one evening, watching the lioness drink from the waterhole the settlement had abandoned weeks ago. She was calm, unbothered, in control. "They're holding the boundary," he said quietly. Latano stood beside him, arms crossed. For now, Masai agreed. Kabari heard the conversation later, secondhand, through whispers around the fire. She didn't respond. She didn't argue. She simply listened. The settlement had survived, but not without cost. 5 goats were gone. A calf lost. Trust between neighbors had frayed. And Kabari's name carried weight now, not respect, but something heavier. A reminder of what happens when one person decides the group is wrong. She didn't regret it, but she understood the price. Months passed. The lions remained, distant but present. The settlement adapted, learning the boundaries the pride had set, grazing their herds in the spaces that felt safer, avoiding the territories that no longer belonged to them. Kabari still went to the eastern ridge sometimes, alone, watching the movement of the pride in the distance. She never got close. She didn't need to. One evening, Latano found her there. "They're still here," he said. "They are. Do you think they remember?" Kabari didn't answer right away. She watched the scarred lion move along the ridge, his gait steady now, his mane fuller. He looked like a different animal than the one she had seen trapped and dying. "No," she said finally. "I don't think they remember." "Then what was it for?" Kabari glanced at him. "It wasn't for them." Latano nodded slowly, understanding settling in without words. The settlement had changed. The cattle grazed in new fields. The elders spoke less about what should have been done and more about what still needed doing. And Kabari's place in the tribe had shifted, not outcast, not hero, but something more complicated. Someone who had acted when no one else would, and lived with the consequences. The lions didn't leave. They didn't come closer, either. They remained at the edges, a presence that reminded the settlement of the fragile agreements that govern survival. Kabari returned to her work, tending the herds, mending what had been broken. She didn't speak of the canyon anymore. She didn't need to. The lions were there, distant and watchful. And in their distance, the settlement found a kind of protection it hadn't asked for and couldn't control. It wasn't the ending anyone had imagined, but it was the one they had earned.